This is being addressed to the junior doctors who've held 11 strikes over the past 16 months because they don't like the way the government has been funding or not funding the NHS. I'm warning you, I'm going to be quite impolite here, but all in all, I'm going to tell you vote reform come the elections, and to tell your friends to do the same thing. Now, isn't that shocking? And I know that will go against the grain for a lot of you. But if you have any sense of scientific inquiry, perhaps you'll stick around and listen to my argument. It may not wash with you, but remember how much you doctors were in love with leeches all those years. So, perhaps you might spend a few minutes listening to me, because I'm going to be pointing out one or two little things that, well, caught up as you are in your caring world, you know, the world in which, because of BMA activism, around 1.5 million procedures and appointments have been cancelled in the last year alone. And that same world in which the government has had to spend £1.7 billion in overtime cover, while you stand in hospital car parks chanting like a bunch of freshman sociology students and being led by some guy who reckons he knows it all because he's got a megaphone. Has that irked you? Do you think I'm not being sympathetic enough? Are you overworked and underpaid? I'm sure you are. So am I, by the way, and I want to tell you, so are many of the people who are not medical staff and who are watching this video. In fact, most people are overworked and underpaid if they care about their jobs. I'm just pointing that out. I'm Granniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. Look, do you honestly think life will be better under Labour? Let's take a look at this headline. Doctors should get less for overtime. Now, if you read further along, you'll see that Wes Streeting is talking about consultants. It says here, Labour has promised an extra 40,000 appointments and procedures every week should it win Thursday's a general election. And if you're overworked now, how do you think those extra 40k appointments are going to pan out? This is going to be paid for in the following way. It says here, Mr. Streeting would only give hospital trusts the funding to pay staff 1.5 times their usual rate. The final rates will continue to be agreed locally between hospitals and consultants who could refuse to take on the work, but the proposed figures would undercut what doctors have typically been paid for extra work. Now, the consultants getting 1.5 instead of around 3 times more for overtime, how do you think that's going to wash? Now, they are the ones who drive the hospitals, and if you're a junior doctor, you're not going to get a look in. Although Labour keeps saying they're talking about the top layers only, how long do you think it will be before it's extended to you lot? The ones, you lot, you know, the ones who follow the man with the megaphone. Wake up! He's a socialist activist. The BMA has been taken over by socialist activists, and many of them are making good points. The fact is, though, they know, as well as you know, as well as I know, that many of them are just not workable. They are in some sort of socialist paradise, some platonic socialist universe. When Labour talk about increasing flexibility, the only thing that's going to happen is that the hospitals are going to be flexible about how the budgeting pie is going to be sliced up. And I can tell you right now, the juniors, the nurses, the junior doctors, the physiotherapists, you're going to be scrapping for the crumbs after the hospital management and the consultants have creamed off the top and compelled you to work extra shifts, because Streeting is also talking about evening and weekend shifts, and you'll be competing for those shifts to get the crumbs, because that's something else the Labour Party has proposed. I don't suppose most of you have listened to Anne Widdecombe talking about the health services at the Reform Conference last week. I can't imagine many committed, caring doctors, and I do believe you're caring. I'm not making jokes here, but I can't believe that many of you have actually been following reform. Well, if you haven't, perhaps you should look up Anne Widdecombe's speech on that. I'll just add something she said. She said a lot more, but she was talking about paying off student debt for doctors if they stay in the NHS for 10 years. That sounded quite nice to me. She was also talking about opening up more university places for medical studies so we wouldn't have to raid foreign countries for their doctors. And perhaps a few more here would relieve some of the pressure you're under. Unless, of course, you like those extra shifts. Or do you just prefer to stand in the hospital car park in your spare time chanting, in tune with the man with the megaphone, like a bunch of zombies? Although, actually, I'm wrong there. The man with the megaphone will disappear as soon as the Labour Party comes in, because whatever is wrong with the NHS, and I know there are things wrong, under a Labour government, it will be fine so far as the socialist activists are concerned. If you think you didn't have a voice out there in that car park, under Labour you might as well be sobbing into the well-padded walls of a seclusion room for all the good it's going to do. The Labour Party have never been any better for the NHS than the Tories were. Never. And in many cases the Tories have been better because they've thrown more money at it out of fear of being called the nasty party. And of course a lot of that money's gone to waste because it hasn't trickled down to where it's needed. Whatever that man with the megaphone has to say, you lot are going to be shafted under Labour just as much as you were under the Tories, and possibly worse, possibly more. Just take a look at the reform proposals and kick it about for a couple of days. See what you think. Okay, till next time. You can help my channel by clicking like, by subscribing, by clicking the notification bell, and by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels are in the description, also links to donation sites, but really the best way you can help me is simply by clicking like. Thank you.